There is a compound that costs less than $2 and easily fits in your shirt pocket, while stopping engine oil leaks the same way a $1,000 gasket repair does. It is not a temporary patch and does not simply slow the drip, but creates a genuine lasting seal that works on seals, gaskets, and joints. Mechanics often insist must be fully replaced. People have been using versions of this method for over 4 centuries without drawing widespread attention to it. The auto industry has quietly spent decades ensuring that you never fully connect the dots behind this solution. Before diving into the modern explanation, you need to understand where this knowledge originally comes from and how it developed. This is not some random garage trick posted online recently by an unknown source looking for attention. It is what experts call convergent knowledge, where completely separate civilizations working in isolation arrived at the exact same solution to the exact same problem. In feudal Japan around the 1600s, craftsmen maintaining water-driven mechanisms inside rice mills faced a constant and damaging issue. The wooden joints and leather seals within their water channels would dry out, crack, and eventually begin leaking under pressure. These failures threatened entire harvest systems that communities depended on for survival and stability. The craftsmen discovered that immersing the degraded seals in warm camellia oil for 12 hours caused the dried material to swell. This swelling allowed the material to return close to its original shape and reform a functional barrier against leaks. Once restored, the mechanism held steady and the harvest remained protected from potential disaster. This knowledge was passed quietly from master to apprentice across multiple generations without widespread documentation. Across the world, and nearly 2 centuries earlier, Persian engineers faced an almost identical challenge under very different conditions. They were maintaining underground irrigation tunnels known as qanats, some stretching over 50 kilometers beneath harsh desert terrain. The dried animal hide joints connecting clay pipe sections would shrink and crack under intense heat exposure. Persian builders discovered that packing these joints with a paste made from rendered tallow and powdered limestone created a solution. Within hours, the hide would swell enough to close the gap without requiring any mechanical fasteners or replacements. This technique was carefully documented in Persian agricultural manuscripts dated to approximately 1420 CE. These records are preserved today in collections maintained by the University of Tehran. In West Africa, Malian blacksmiths working along the Niger River in the 1500s encountered similar material degradation problems. They found that boiling cracked leather bellows seals in shea butter for 30 minutes restored flexibility and airtight performance. This practice was later recorded by Portuguese traders who observed it near Timbuktu around 1510 and expressed genuine astonishment. 3 separate civilizations across 3 different continents arrived at one shared principle through independent discovery. They all understood that swelling degraded material back into its original geometry, using the right penetrating compound, could restore function. But even with this shared discovery, that principle is only the beginning of a much deeper story. The knowledge moved quietly into the early modern period without receiving much formal or scientific attention at the time. Sailors and shipwrights in the 1700s carried versions of this technique as part of their routine maintenance practices. British Royal Navy maintenance logs from 1742 reference soaking hemp rope gaskets in rendered linseed oil before fitting them into cannon breech seals. This process was used specifically to reduce propellant gas leakage during cannon firing operations on naval ships. The logs recorded a 30 to 40% reduction in misfire incidents on ships where this practice was consistently applied. Despite these results, the findings were treated as logistical notes rather than serious scientific investigations. That perspective began to change significantly in the mid-20th century with more structured research efforts. In 1952, a Japanese materials engineer named Kenzo Watanabe was working at the Osaka Municipal Industrial Research Institute. He published a paper in the Journal of Applied Polymer Science, examining why certain traditional craft materials responded strongly to petroleum-based penetrating fluids. His focus was on dried natural rubber and tanned leather, which showed unexpected recovery behavior when exposed to specific oils. Watanabe had originally been assigned to investigate the performance of industrial gaskets used in low-pressure hydraulic machinery. During his research, he repeatedly encountered the same unusual anomaly across multiple test cases. Components that should have required full replacement were instead regaining structural integrity after incidental contact with certain oils. This repeated observation led him to investigate the underlying chemical processes responsible for the effect. What Watanabe discovered was both elegant in design and unsettling in its broader implications. Rubber and synthetic elastomer seals do not typically fail because the material physically breaks apart. They fail because the plasticizers inside them gradually migrate outward due to heat cycling and oxidation over time. Plasticizers are chemical compounds that maintain flexibility within the material structure of the seal. As these compounds leave, the material becomes dry, rigid, and prone to cracking under stress. What appears to be a destroyed gasket is actually one that has been chemically hollowed out rather than structurally destroyed. The physical structure of the seal often remains mostly intact, despite the loss of flexibility. The essential chemistry that allows the material to flex and seal has simply dissipated over time. Watanabe demonstrated that certain small molecule petroleum compounds could reverse part of this process. These compounds are commonly found in ordinary mineral-based hydraulic transmission fluid used in machinery. They are chemically compatible with the original plasticizer compounds present inside the seals. When a degraded seal is exposed to this fluid under slight pressure, the small molecules penetrate the material matrix. These molecules partially replace the plasticizers that were lost during the degradation process. The seal does not return to a brand new state, but it regains enough flexibility to function effectively again. It swells slightly, conforms to its contact surfaces, and restores its sealing capability. Understanding this reveals a striking and almost paradoxical reality about the system. The same petroleum oil that leaks through a failing seal contains the molecular components capable of restoring that seal. In this sense, the substance causing the problem also contains the elements needed to solve it. At the molecular level, both the problem and the solution are rooted in the same chemistry. Watanabe's findings were later confirmed by further research conducted in the United States. In 1978, the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, Texas, carried out an evaluation of low-cost maintenance methods. This study focused on agricultural diesel equipment used in developing nations where replacement parts were difficult to obtain. The report found that automatic transmission fluid demonstrated measurable seal reconditioning properties. These results were consistent with the earlier findings documented by Watanabe in his research. The fluid was widely available and cost only $1 to $2 per quart in most regions. Around the same period, similar practices were emerging independently in other parts of the world. In rural Australia, sheep station mechanics were operating thousands of kilometers away from the nearest part suppliers. Due to necessity, they began using automatic transmission fluid as an emergency gasket conditioner. They relied on observation and repeated results rather than formal scientific explanation. This mirrored the same pattern seen in ancient civilizations that discovered the principle through experimentation. Independent confirmation continued to appear across different environments and time periods. Each instance reinforced the same fundamental principle of material restoration through chemical compatibility. Eventually, this accumulation of knowledge reached a point where its economic implications became impossible to ignore. At that moment, someone in a corporate boardroom sat down and carefully did the math. The global automotive aftermarket parts industry generates approximately $390 billion in annual revenue as of 2024. A significant portion of that revenue comes from one category alone, which includes seals, gaskets, and fluid leak repairs. The average engine oil leak repair at a commercial shop typically runs between $150 and $1,200, depending on the gasket location. A rear main seal replacement on a common V8 engine averages around $650 in labor costs alone. The actual part required for that repair often costs less than $30 in most cases. The majority of the cost exists because of labor, not because of the material itself. This labor is necessary largely because many people are unaware of a simpler alternative solution. In a substantial number of cases, though not all, a low-cost product applied correctly can permanently close the leak. That product often costs only a few dollars and requires far less effort than full replacement. A simple and inexpensive solution like this cannot easily coexist with a multi-billion-dollar replacement industry. This is not because of a dramatic conspiracy where executives gather and plan suppression strategies. Modern suppression in industry does not usually happen through obvious or coordinated meetings. Instead, it operates more subtly through what can be described as economic gravity. The system naturally favors solutions that generate more revenue over time. Here is what began to happen starting in the 1980s within the automotive marketplace. A small category of specialty products started appearing on store shelves under proprietary trade names. These included products sold under names such as Blue Devil, Barsleeks, and ATP. These products are widely known to work, and many mechanics privately acknowledge their effectiveness. However, the product labels do not clearly explain the primary mechanism behind their performance. The fine print often avoids direct explanation of the core chemical process involved. In reality, several of these products rely on petroleum-based seal conditioners combined with mild swelling agents. This is the same class of chemistry originally described in research published in 1952. Despite this, the retail price for these branded products typically ranges from $12 to $25 per bottle. An equivalent amount of automatic transmission fluid containing similar chemistry can cost as little as $1.40. The use of proprietary branding helps prevent consumers from making this direct comparison. This branding strategy ensures that the underlying similarity between products is not immediately obvious. Regulatory frameworks for automotive chemical products do not require full disclosure of precise active ingredients. This differs from industries like pharmaceuticals, where ingredient transparency is more strictly enforced. As a result, companies have been able to build strong brand identities around widely known chemical principles. These principles have been publicly documented since 1952 and practiced in various forms since the 1600s. This creates a barrier that separates general consumer knowledge from accessible scientific understanding. Consider what this means in practical, everyday situations involving vehicle ownership. Every oil stain left in a driveway represents a small instance of this larger pattern. Each delayed repair caused by high-cost estimates reinforces the same cycle. Many mechanics present expensive repair options without mentioning lower-cost alternatives that sometimes work. That silence carries significant financial value when multiplied across millions of vehicles each year. Over time, this value accumulates into a massive revenue stream supporting the existing system. That system continues to function in a way that limits widespread awareness of simpler solutions. If you have followed this explanation closely, you now understand more about seal chemistry than most car enthusiasts. This knowledge places you in a small percentage of people who are aware of these underlying principles. Sharing this information can help others avoid unnecessary expenses and make more informed decisions. Encouraging others to learn about this concept helps preserve knowledge that has existed for centuries. This is exactly how practical knowledge continues to survive across generations and industries. Here's exactly what you need to do, and the process is almost insultingly simple to follow. The first step is to go to any auto parts store, such as AutoZone, O'Reilly, Napa, or even a Walmart automotive section. Ask for Dexron 3 or Dexron 6.6 automatic transmission fluid, which is a standard and widely available product. This is not a specialty item, and it is not difficult to find in most locations. A single quart typically costs between $1.50 and $3, depending on the brand and store. For this process, you will only need roughly half a quart of the fluid. The second step is to identify the exact source of the leak in your vehicle. Look carefully for the wet and oily area located on the underside of your engine or transmission system. Common leak locations include the valve cover gasket, the rear main seal, the front crankshaft seal, and the oil pan gasket. This method is specifically designed for leaks involving rubber or synthetic elastomer seals. It will not work on cracked metal components or physically damaged and torn gaskets. If the gasket is visibly torn or broken, then this method is not the correct solution for your problem. If the leak is caused by rubber that has hardened and shrunk over time, then you can proceed. This condition applies to the majority of seal leaks found in vehicles that are over 7 years old. The third step is important because it avoids an unnecessary action that many people assume is required. You should not drain the engine oil before applying this method. With your engine fully warmed up from normal driving, ensure it has reached full operating temperature. Add half a quart of automatic transmission fluid directly into your engine oil through the oil filler cap. The difference in viscosity between cold and warm oil plays a significant role in this process. Warm oil circulates more efficiently and helps carry the transmission fluid directly to the seals. This allows the fluid to reach degraded seal areas throughout the entire system more effectively. The fourth step is to drive your vehicle normally for a period of 3 to 7 days. This typically translates to approximately 150 to 200 miles of regular driving conditions. Avoid driving too gently because normal pressure is required to circulate the fluid properly. Standard driving helps push the fluid against the degraded seal surfaces within the system. You should check the leak point each day to monitor any visible changes. In most situations, the leak will begin to slow down noticeably within 48 hours. In many cases, the leak stops completely within 5 to 7 days of normal use. The fifth step takes place during your next scheduled oil change interval. Perform the oil change as you normally would without any special adjustments. The automatic transmission fluid will be removed along with the old engine oil. However, the reconditioning effect on the seals will remain after the fluid is gone. This happens because the plasticizer chemistry has been reintegrated into the seal material itself. You are not simply masking the leak temporarily, but restoring the material's ability to function. The total investment for this method is approximately $2 and only a few minutes of effort. This time is spread across a normal week of driving rather than requiring a dedicated repair session. In comparison, the average shop repair for the same issue typically ranges between $200 and $800. A diesel mechanic named Ray Kowalski in Billings, Montana, documented this method publicly in 2019. He applied it to a 1997 Ford F-250 that had a confirmed rear main seal leak. After 6 days and approximately 190 miles of driving, the leak had completely stopped. He continued documenting the engine condition weekly for 3 months after the treatment. During that period, the seal maintained its integrity without any further leakage. The truck had accumulated 287,000 miles at the time of his last recorded update. The science works because the underlying chemistry remains consistent and reliable. You are not tricking or bypassing physical laws, but instead working in alignment with them. This principle has been understood by multiple cultures and professions throughout history. Japanese craftsmen understood it through traditional material restoration practices. West African blacksmiths applied similar concepts in their mechanical work. Persian engineers relied on the same idea when maintaining irrigation systems. British Navy shipwrights used comparable methods in maintaining naval equipment. Rural Australian mechanics discovered the same results through repeated observation and necessity. Previous generations likely understood this principle or learned it from someone who did. A multi-billion-dollar industry depends on consumers never connecting these ideas to modern products. This connection leads directly to a simple and inexpensive solution found on store shelves. The knowledge itself was never lost or destroyed over time. Instead, it became hidden behind pricing structures and modern branding strategies. Scientific principles do not change based on marketing or brand identity decisions. Natural processes do not require licensing fees or corporate approval to function. Every time this information is shared, it weakens the barrier that keeps it hidden. Every new person who learns this contributes to preserving practical knowledge. This is how valuable information continues to survive across generations. There are still more insights to uncover, and the next discovery may be even more surprising.